All right, let's do this. Welcome to Microsoft Excel charts, tables, and visualizations. My name is Maggie. I'm a librarian here with the Plano Public Library. We also have Jessica here helping us to facilitate the chat. This class has been designed around knowing some basic computer and Excel skills. If you need to brush up or wish to learn more about basic computer and Excel skills, we do have some online resources for you. So I will try to take it slow in case you are practicing along with me, taking down notes, whatever you want to do to feel comfortable with the content. So I want to thank you in advance for your patience. And let's get started. Welcome to Excel, charts, tables, and visualizations. The goal for today's class is to learn about and use some Excel tools to help your data tell a story, whether that is for meetings, reports, or just a general understanding of your data. It is great for anybody that perhaps is a more visual person like I am. So I hope these tools will help you see your numbers in a more visualized way. As I stated earlier in the email for this class, at the bottom of that email, there is a link to a Google Drive. This is where you can get the practice spreadsheet I will be using for today's class. So let's go ahead and go there. So when you click on that link, it'll take you to Google Drive where all of the practice spreadsheets and information about this Excel series can be found. So today we're working on the charts, tables, and visualizations. And here's the practice spreadsheet. So you can either click on this downward arrow, or if you happen to click and open up the file, you can find that downward arrow up here on the top right-hand corner of your screen. So let's download that to the computer. If you're using Google Chrome, the download will pop up in the lower left-hand corner. Just simply click to open. And if it's not found there, it can be found in your downloads folder on your computer. So if it pops up, you'll have to click on Enable Editing to actually make some changes to your spreadsheet. So there we go. In this spreadsheet, we have a list of employees and their monthly sales figure for a calendar year, along with some calculations, including total sales for each employee throughout the year, and then the average sales down here for each of the months. Below that, we have 2 employees pulled out with their sales figures for 2 calendar years. We are going to use these pieces of data to use some visualization tools like charts and graphs. Visualizing your data is super helpful when numbers are overwhelming and can use some clarification. Again, for those visual type people like me. So first, I want to do a brief review of Excel and introduce some vocabulary I will be using throughout the class. Let's review the workspace. So up here at the very top is your quick access toolbar, which includes your save, undo, and redo. We'll be using undo a lot today, so find that in the upper left-hand corner. You can add some tools to your quick access toolbar by clicking on this down arrow. I like to add spelling to my quick access toolbar, so it's handy right there. Included in your quick access toolbar includes the name of your file you are working with. So below that is what is called the ribbon. Right here, it's all your tools. The ribbon has all the tools you may need to structure, organize, and formulate your data. Below the ribbon is really important right here is the name box. The name box shows the name of a selected cell based on what column and what row it is in. So I'm going to click on over here. And this cell is in column E and row 3. So up here in our name box, we have E3. So if you took last week's class on formulas and functions, it's really helpful to know the name of a selected cell. Next door is the formula bar, which shows the text or formula in a specific cell. For example, I have this number out here on the right-hand side. I'll click on that cell, and the formula bar shows the formula I used to get this number. So our data here is in one sheet. You can have multiple sheets in one file by adding sheets, however many you want. I won't be using multiple sheets today, but that's a possibility for you. And bottom right-hand corner is the option to zoom in or out. Just like that, zooming in. But I'm going to be working with a lot of charts and whatnot that will take up a lot of room, so I'm going to zoom back out to the normal 100%. So back to the ribbon, I'm going to highlight some of the tools that we'll be using today and where you can find them. So on the Home tab of our ribbon, towards right here in the middle, hopefully you can see better. I made my cursor bigger this time in yellow. It's exciting. We have conditional formatting, which can be used to apply specific formatting to cells. It is often used as a color-based formatting system to highlight, emphasize, or differentiate your data. The other tool we'll be using today is on the Insert tab of our ribbon. So click on Insert, come in again to the middle to our charts. There are so many charts to choose from, including a bar graph, which are used to compare things between different groups or to track changes over time. With our employees here, we could see who are the top salespeople for a specific year or month with a bar graph. More on that in a little bit. Below that is a line graph. Line graphs are used to track changes over short and long periods of time. When smaller changes exist, line graphs are certainly better to use than bar graphs. I might use a line graph for a specific employee to track their sales per month over a calendar year. Below that, pie charts. Pie charts are used when you're trying to compare parts of a whole. This chart works if we wanted to take a snapshot of a month and compare each employee within that month. That's an option. Wanted to point out histograms over here, which show a statistical analysis of continuous data to determine the distribution of a data set. If that sounds a little too mathy for you, it does for me. I won't necessarily be using this one today. Just wanted to point it out for you, for those mathy people out there who love statistics. Below that, we have a scatter plot to show a relationship between data sets, like if I wanted to compare Carter's 2 years of sales numbers. And as you can see, there's so many more chart options based on your needs with your data. So let's begin. Well, this class is called Tables, Charts, and Visualizations. We're going to actually work backwards, starting with the visualization tools back under the Home tab. So let's click on the Home tab and use those conditional formatting tools right here in the middle. So for this tool, I want to see how the employees are doing with their total sales in regards to a randomly selected sales goal figure of 6,000. So first, to use the tool, we're going to highlight our total sales here in column N. You click and drag, starting with your first cell, click and drag all the way to your bottom cell that you want to select. Let's come over here to conditional formatting, and we're going to start with the first option available, which is highlight cell rules. And we're going to go with greater than, because I said earlier, we want to see all the employees that are doing great and that are exceeding the sales goal. So that would be greater than. And our randomly selected sales goal is 6,000. So the default option it's given me is a light red fill with dark red text. But these employees are doing great. They are exceeding the sales goals. So I'm going to change that to a green fill with dark green text. And click OK. So we see all of our employees that are exceeding the sales goal. Good job, team. So the reversal is also available. Let's find the undo up in the upper left-hand corner. Undo. Our cells are selected still. So let's come back to conditional formatting. Highlight cell rules. And this time we're going to see who's not quite reaching the sales goal. So that would be less than. Again, our sales goal is 6,000. And I do want to keep it red because these are the employees that are not quite reaching that goal. So let's determine who they are. And there we go. We have our sales figures, our employees that need a little help. I can see right away that I could reach out to these 3 employees and see how can I help them reach their sales goal. Undo. Like I said, we're going to be doing undo a lot because I want to make the changes stand out as we work along. But it is possible to do several conditional formatting options on one sheet, just FYI. So you don't have to keep on undoing all your conditional formatting. You could have kept your greater than green, bottom red, but I want to clear everything away, make it a white screen so you see those changes a little bit better. So we are going to look at the next tool in our conditional formatting box. And today we are going to, again, use our total sales. So click and highlight to select our cells in the total sales column. It's a lot of sales and cells. Conditional formatting. Let's go for that second option, top bottom rules. And we're going to start with the top 10 items. Click on that. But I only have 10 employees, so I want to see who the top 5 are. I can easily change 10 to 5. And these are my top 5 employees, so I'm going to switch it from red to green. And OK. There we go. Now let's find our bottom 5 employees. You can already tell this way, but let's add that color to it to really make it stand out. So we'll highlight, click and drag to select all those cells. Find the conditional formatting, the second option, top and bottom rules, and we'll find the bottom 10 items this time. And change that to 5 because we have 10 employees, splitting it in half with my top 5 and then bottom 5, keeping it red. And there we go. You can now see who your top 5 employees are and who are your bottom 5 employees with some visualization tools. And if you do have multiple conditional formats going on in your spreadsheet, you can come up here to the conditional format and clear rules. So you could clear the rules from one selected cell or from the entire sheet. I'm going to click on the entire sheet so I go back to my clean white spreadsheet here. Another option to view the differentiations in data is with data bars. And this time we are going to use our average sales per month calculations here below our employees. So I'm going to click on January and drag on out to December. Come back to conditional formatting and moving down to the third option, which are data bars. You can do a gradient fill or a solid fill. You see those changes as I hover above them. But let's click on more rules here. And you can actually see the more rules option for each of the conditional formatting tools here. We are going to select it this time for data bars. So let's click on more rules. And this is really where you can determine how to use your data bars based on your data. So you can format based on values. You can format only cells that contain a certain something. You can format top or bottom ranked values. You can format based on values that are above or below an average. You can format based on unique or duplicate values. And lastly, you can use a formula to determine which cells to format. And did you see as I was clicking through that the rule description below changed based on your selection? So you can really get it down to the nitty and gritty of what you're wanting to do with your data. I'm going to keep it on the first option of format cells based on their value and leave it on an automatic maximum and minimum. You can select your fill type and the color you want to use. I think I want to use green. Let's use a nice green here. And we'll click OK. So here we go. We have some data bars with our average monthly sales figures. And we can really tell that January was perhaps a rough month. And then towards the end of the year, we were finishing out strong. Again, it's just a visualized way to look at your data for those visual learners. Let's go ahead, come back to conditional formatting to clear the rules from the entire sheet. And we are going to go down to the next conditional formatting option, which would be color scales. And this time I'm going to use Carter's data down here below our chart. We're going to click and highlight his numbers from January of both years all the way out to December. Come back up to conditional formatting, click, and click on color scales. And there's some template options here for you. So you could use green, yellow, red gradients. So just red.
Hey, Maggie,
Yeah.
I'm getting a couple of questions about the VLOOKUP that you're doing, or the VLOOKUP that you did. Can you go over that again real quick?
What is it? I'm sorry, it was cutting out just a little bit there.
Oh, sorry. We're getting a lot of questions about the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP.
VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. I don't remember doing that. Can I get a little bit more clarification from the chat?
Yeah, it's saying, let's see. Is there an advanced class that discusses the power tools like HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP?
Oh, not at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, we might be able to find that in Linda. I'll show you that at the end of the class. All right. Are we good right now, Jessica?
Yes, we are good.
Okay, so back to our color scales here. I'm going to choose the first option with our red, yellow, and green gradients. So select on that. And we can really tell where Carter was thriving versus where he was struggling a little bit. So the end of the years for both years looked really solid. March, April, May on 2018 was a little rough, but it's a good way to visualize how a particular employee is doing with their sales figures by using the gradients here. And And I'm going to undo. And let's look at the last tool under conditional formatting with our monthly average sales. So I'm going to click that row again, come to conditional formatting for one last, and we'll click on those icon sets. These are fun. You can add a directional, a shape, an indicator like a flag, or a rating scale. So let's click on the flags here, or no, I like this one, the check and then vertical line and X. They're fun little tools to add to your data to see how you did throughout the year monthly. So again, January, X, not so good. But then we had a good spot in February, March, and then later on in the year. It's a fun tool. Put little icons on there. So we'll come to conditional formatting to clear those rules from the entire sheet. So those are the visualization tools under conditional formatting. And I'm going to jump to the next part of the title of the class, which are charts. Charts are useful for reports, some marketing pieces, presentations, in order to be a visual aid for your data. Charts can be found on that Insert tab. So let's click on the Insert. And right here in the middle. So, but first, in order to create a chart with the right data, you will probably want to highlight the data you want to use for your chart before you choose the chart type you want to use. So I'm going to highlight our table here of employees and their monthly sales figure for a year. So we'll start with cell A1, click and drag to highlight all the way out to M11. And the first chart we want to use today is a classic bar chart. When you click on the arrow next to it, it will bring down your options of what type of chart you're looking for. So do you want a 2D column, 3D, 2D bar, 3D bar? You want separated or stacked, like that. So I like the stacked column. So let's click on that. And we have our chart. If you want to move your chart out of the way, make sure it is selected, which you can tell by the boundaries. We'll click and drag. So if you click somewhere else and start to drag, it's gonna do a little weird things. So best to click on an empty space to drag it out to the side. Let's keep it over here. So we can still look at our data, but have our chart off to the side. You can make it bigger by hovering your cursor over the boundaries in the corners and drag it on out. There we go. We have a bar chart. First, we need to appropriately title our chart. So you can click on the text of chart title and then double click to highlight. And let's label this chart sales per month. So when a chart is selected, so it's not selected now we select it, tools pop up in our ribbon to help you make the chart that you want for your data. You can edit the look and feel of your chart using these tools. So starting on the left side and moving to the right, first option is to add a chart element. Click down to see our menu of options here. So you could change where your chart title is. You could have data labels. You could decide which grid lines you want to use for your chart. And I kind of like the look of that, so I'll click on that. And I want to add some axis titles to our chart here. We could add one on the horizontal or the vertical. Let's do horizontal. So I want to name this chart for the year that this data is from. So you can click on that text box and then double click to highlight. We'll type in 2019. All right, another helpful element you could move around is your legend. So our legend right now is all of our employee names, and we could move that, slip myself, there we go. Enter, nope, click back, thank you. Let's get back to that legend. As you can see, as I hover over the different legend options, they'll move around based on that selection. I kind of like the employees listed up there. No, more so to the right. That looks good. Again, it's your personal preference of what you want your chart to look like for what you need to use it for. So moving along the ribbon to do, there's the next option is to do quick layout changes. So it's templates provided for you. We can change the look of your chart pretty quick with one of these quick layout options. It's pretty interesting. Next to that, you could change the colors of your chart. Again, it's whatever you prefer. Perhaps you could use the colors of your organization. Kind of like these colors, we'll go with that. And next to that are some chart style options. So perhaps you would like to make a shadow, or I particularly like this last option, which is a black background. It really helps pop against the whiteness of our spreadsheet here. So another nifty tool that I use a lot when I'm building out my charts is to switch what is on the x-axis, depending on whether you wanted to use the row, months, or the columns, the employees. So right now it is using the months as the differentiable on our x-axis here of our chart. But when we click on the switch row and column, it now makes our employees the differentiating items on our x-axis. I like this change. I think it's better to see the chart and compare employees throughout the year this way. So jumping down one, you can change your chart type. If this chart bar chart is not just working for you and what you need with your data, you can click on the change chart type right here. And it pops up with the dialog box. You can click on the different options. We are going to, let's see. Let's go ahead and do a line chart. Yeah, let's do a line chart right now. And whoa, that's quite the chart. That's a lot of lines going on. So we can use the select data option right here next to switch row and column to determine what shows up in our chart based on our data selected. So if I was just wanting to look at a couple employees, I could deselect. So we'll look at Beatrice and Ellis. So I'll deselect everybody else. And we'll click on OK. But again, that kind of looks like a funky chart. Let's switch our row column again. So there we go. We are comparing our two employees and how they did throughout 1 year. You will definitely play around with your chart and the tools in order to get the result you want. Oop. So yeah, selected the wrong spot, undo, click on a blank space to move our charts around. All right, let's make another chart. This chart will use Wanda's data down here at the bottom of our spreadsheet, her numbers for 2018 and 2019. So I'm going to start with the number under January for 2019. Select that cell, click and drag it on out to highlight all of our cells. Find our charts again under the Insert tab. And this time, let's do a pie chart just to see how that will work for us. Again, there's options based on what you want your chart to look like. There's 2D or 3D. Let's go with the classic 2D here. And let's label this chart. So you click and then double click Wanda's sales. And as you change your chart type, the chart elements do change based on that type of chart. So with our bar graph chart earlier, we saw a lot more options of the different elements we could add to that chart. A pie graph is just a little bit more limiting, so we have less options. Let me show you I'll click on my line chart here and show you, has quite a few options, maybe one more than our bar graph did. So these chart elements do change based on the type of chart you're working with. Let me click on Wanda's pie chart to have that selected. We'll move it over here, scroll down for you. There we go. And for this chart, I want to find and add some data labels to see what I'm really looking at. What numbers am I looking at here? So you can determine where to add those data labels. So it could be in the center of the pie piece, on the inside out, best fit. I'm gonna do, I'll do outside. I like the look of that. I can really see those numbers better that way. So I'm looking at this data and it doesn't look like it's data for both of our years because we have an 865 for January here. So that must just be the data for 2019. With a chart, you'll have some options here on the right-hand side of your chart where you could add chart elements, but we are using this tool right here for filtering. Yes, and we have two buttons here for Series 1, which would be our data for 2019, and Series 2, which would be our data for 2018. So let's click on Series 2 and then apply that and see what that does. Yes, it's now giving us our data in a pie chart for 2018. It's not the best chart for wanting to compare two separate years for one employee. That's okay. We have different charts to work with. So let's come up here to the ribbon of our tools. We'll change our chart type. And this time, let's use a scatter plot. In about the middle of the list, X, Y scatter. Let's do that one. So click OK. And now we have our data points scattered here. And it still looks like it's showing just 1 year, Series 2. So find that filter tool on the right-hand side of the chart. We'll click. And now these become check boxes where we can select both and apply both years' data. So we'll select Series 1 and apply. Great, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was wanting to see all of Wanda's numbers in a nice chart for 2 years and see how she was doing. Often with scatter charts, you add a trend line. So that is an element listed here, trend line. And you could add a linear, an exponential, linear forecast, and moving average. Let's just go with that linear. It's asking which series you want to do the trend line for. We'll start with series 1 and click OK. But you can add a trend line for series 2. You'll just have to go back in to add a chart element, trend line, linear, and this time we'll click on series 2, and we have trend lines for both of our years. All right. How are we doing? Everybody doing okay? Gonna move the charts out of the way.
We do have one question. If you could go over, if you have like a lot of data, what is the quickest way of selecting that data without just clicking and dragging it?
To make the chart, or like when we had that first stacked bar graph at the beginning. So let me move this out of the way, and my data is highlighted here. So we'll highlight the data here. We'll do that insert in a bar graph. So we had lots of data here and it was a little overwhelming to understand. You can come up here to select your data and determine what is appearing. You could add, you could edit, you could remove, or you could click on these boxes. I'm only wanting to see all of my employees' data for one specific month. Let's make that December, since that's the month we're on. So we'll unclick those boxes and we'll click OK. Not super helpful looking chart. So again, I like to switch our rows and columns, and there we go. We have a better looking chart based on our need of what data we wanted to look at a particular moment.
So I think that doesn't seem to answer her question. It seems like if there's a lot of data, like going all the way down column A, is there a quicker way to just click all of the data that she wants?
Oh, yes. So if you wanted to highlight one specific column, you'll click on that column name to highlight that whole column. So I clicked on column A and it would highlight the whole column. Click on B, would highlight all of B. Does the same thing with the row. So if you have one specific row, you could click and highlight, and it would highlight the whole row. And then there is this half of a square, a triangle in this upper left-hand corner of the spreadsheet. And that would highlight your whole sheet you have going on here. So hopefully that answers that, but I want to continue on with the next part of our class, which is a table. So next we're going to create a table, but why create a table? Isn't Excel one big table? That's a good question. A table can be helpful to sort and filter out your data. So let's see that in action. I'm going to keep with my data set up here and continue to ignore my data down here. So I'm going to click and highlight from A1 to M11. And there's two places where you can turn your data into a table. There is Insert Table. But my favorite place of doing this is back on the Home tab. Next to Conditional Formatting, there is Format as a Table. When I click on this, it gives me some awesome options of the look of my table. So I could make it light, medium, dark, and different colors. So with this time around, I think I'll use the blue right here. I like that dark header and then the alternating light blue, white, rose. And where is the data? So if at this point you didn't highlight, this is where you could also highlight to determine the data that you want to format into a table. I think it's pretty important to keep this box checked for my table has headers. So we'll keep that checked and we'll click OK. And now our data for our employees for the year has turned into a table. And so how is this helpful? It's helpful for these reasons here with the drop-down options for each of the headers. So we're in December right now. I want to now sort my employees based on their December sales from largest to smallest. So let's go ahead and do that. And it has moved around all the data in the table. And we see that Devonna and Carter were my leading employees for December sales. Let's again do that. We'll do in May. I wanted to see my employees that struggled in May, so we'll sort from smallest to largest. And we see Farheen and Ivana just were slightly struggling with May. Again, good ways to filter and sort your data is to create a table of your data. So maybe you're asking about the pivot table options here on the Insert tab. So pivot tables are a reporting and summation tool that really gives you your information about an Excel table. And we actually have a class on pivot tables scheduled for next Wednesday, December 30th. So you're registered for the Excel series. Make sure to join us next week for pivot tables and learn about the magic of pivot tables. Okay. I want to show you one of my favorite tools for visualizing the data. It's called a Sparkline. I'm going to start with Farheen right here and click drag to highlight her data from January to December. On the Insert tab, we'll come here past Charts to Sparklines options. Click on Align. They are mini charts placed in a single cell. So click. And it wants me to choose where you want to place your Sparkline. I'm going to place it out beside the total sales. So select that cell. It'll fill it in. And we'll click OK. And look at there. It's a fun little line graph right inside a cell. I think it's fun. I hope you do too. So like charts, you can change the look of your Sparkline and utilize a few tools. So my cell is selected with the Sparkline. You can change the color of it. You can add the high point and low point of that specific Sparkline. Did you see that change? I'll undo real quick. When I added a high point, the red dot appeared at the highest point, and then we'll do a low point. Appeared there. And we can add a Sparkline for each of the rest of our employees. But again, I want to do it one more time so you could see what I did to add a Sparkline. For Devonna, we'll click on January. Click on January cell and highlight all the way out to December. Come to the Insert tab. Find the line in the Sparklines option. And now it wants you to choose where you want the Sparkline to be placed. I'll place it right here below the first Sparkline for Farheen. Select your cell and click OK. Now we have a Sparkline for Devonna's data for the year. Now let's add a high point. She did really well in December, it looks like, and then low point. There we go. And you can auto-populate sparklines for the rest of the employees. Auto-populate is by where you move your cursor to the bottom right-hand corner of the selected cell that you want to duplicate. So as my cursor moves up to that selected cell, the bottom right-hand corner, it turns into a black plus sign. You'll click and drag that on out to the rest of the employees. And now we have fun sparklines for all of our employees. I like them. So another interesting tool that might be helpful for you is to trace a precedent. So since you were given the spreadsheet, you might wonder what this number is off on the right-hand side. What is that number? Where did it come from? How did we get there? So on the Formulas tab, we're moving on to Formulas tab in our ribbon, there is an option to trace precedence, and it will show arrows that indicate which cells affect the value of a currently selected cell. So how did we get to this number? Well, you click, oh, it's telling us total cells were added up for that number, but how did we get those total cells? All these numbers for our employees were added up for the total cells for each one of them. That gave us that number. And you can keep on clicking it until your system says there are no more precedents by using that chime. So let's use that again. But first, let me remove the arrows here so that clears out. We can see. What is this number down here? Where'd that come from? Let's trace the precedence. So we'll click trace precedent. Oh, it came from this row here. And those numbers for average sales came from the monthly numbers, and that is it. That is how we got this calculation. Again, it's a helpful tool if you're given a spreadsheet like this one and you have no idea where this number came from. So we'll remove the arrows. And that is it for today's class of charts, tables, and visualizations. Do we have any questions that I can answer before I show some of the other library resources?
We currently have no questions at the moment. You're doing fantastic.
Well, thank you, Jessica. So feel free to ask questions. We just have a few more minutes left, but I wanted to show some of the library resources for you. So if you had specific questions about Excel that weren't answered today, perhaps you could use one of these library resources. So the first one is lynda.com. You can get to it by visiting planolibrary.org. Click on the Learn tab, and we'll go down to Research and Learn. Here's all of our helpful databases for whatever need you have. But we'll scroll down to Business. That's where Lynda is. You'll need a Plano library card in order to access, along with your PIN number, which is the last 4 digits of your telephone number. When you do that, you'll be able to log in. I went ahead and searched for Excel classes to see what Lynda has to offer for you. We have over 6,000 results for Excel, but you can narrow it down on the left-hand side based on skill level, how long you want to sit and watch the video for, what you're needing to use Excel for. So if you are in finance or want to go into finance, perhaps you could click on that and see all the different options. Some for presentations. Let's click on that and see. Very, very specific options there for Excel with presentations. So let's click out of presentations, go back to our Excel results. And if you are beginning and just getting into Excel, I would click on the beginning level, and that will narrow our results down to 1,000, a little bit more manageable to go through. Oz here is a wonderful character to take a look at and watch some of his videos. He's great. And there are so many different options We have power pivots here, essential training, 8 hours long, but really in-depth and great. So I hope you use Linda and further your Excel experience. And if you have questions that you want to ask a librarian, we do have an option for you back on the library's website, planolibrary.org. Under About, you can find a link to fill out a form to get help from a librarian. You can either ask a short reference question, but if you're really wanting to learn something in Excel, have a specific question about Excel or other things, you probably want to fill out this Book a Librarian form. And we've been meeting virtually, so we can Zoom with you, Skype with you, whatever you need to do in order to answer your questions. So do we have any questions out there that I can answer before we go for today?
Let's see, it looks like we did have one question that just came in asking if it's possible to cut and paste PowerPoint into, cut and paste the Excel tables that you make into a PowerPoint.
Yeah, so I have this random December chart that I made earlier for my employees. So it's selected. You can Control C or right click and copy. And I have my PowerPoint from earlier. So I'll make a new slide. And you can Control V or right click. And when you right click, it of course gives you more options of how you want to paste your chart. But yes, Control V. Copy and pasted my chart from Excel into PowerPoint. Oh, and look, you have design options pop up within PowerPoint, so you could still change the look and feel of your chart.
Awesome, that's perfect. I don't have any other questions right now.
Okay, thank you. Oh, thank you all for attending today's program. Again, I hope you join us for next week's class on pivot tables. We're wrapping up our Excel series. You all have a wonderful day and happy holidays. Thank you again for joining us.